Have you ever wondered if there's a fresh, innovative way to approach the editing process for your manuscript? Well, drawing inspiration from the world of theatre, this, the second of a two-parter, delves into editing a novel using an actor's method for preparing for a role. So whether you're knee-deep in revisions or just starting out, this episode has valuable takeaways for all storytellers. So dive in and discover how your manuscript can truly shine in the spotlight. Hello, I'm Stuart Wakefield, an author accelerator, certified book coach and writer. With 26 years in theatre, broadcast media and coaching under my belt, I know what makes stories work, and I love to share that with other writers because the world of storytelling, it's like the ocean. It's deep, it's mysterious, and it's a little bit scary to those who don't know how to navigate it. And with so much left to luck and timing, it's my mission to give great books the best chance of getting into readers' hands. In each episode, I'll share tips and plans of action that will help you write, edit, and publish your book. And if you're new to writing or consciously working to improve your craft, then this is the podcast for you. Have you ever watched an actor prepare for a role? The meticulous detail, the character immersion, the rehearsal, feedback, and fine-tuning? It's a masterclass in creation and refinement. So why can't writers adopt the same method? So in this, the second of two episodes, we're going to explore a new, innovative approach to editing a novel, and one that draws inspiration from the world of theatre. Now, you might wonder how the process of preparing for a role could possibly relate to the task of refining a manuscript, but the parallels are surprisingly rich and insightful. There are 7 comprehensive steps, from character study and rehearsal all the way through to polishing the performance. And each step borrows from an actor's approach to preparation, adapted to the needs of a writer polishing their novel. So whether you're a seasoned writer or a fresh-faced newcomer, these steps will help you breathe new life into your editing process, ensuring your final manuscript is ready to take the stage and captivate its audience. So, without further ado, let's raise the curtain on this actor's approach to novel editing. So this unique method consists of 7 steps, much like the path an actor might take. I covered steps 1 to 3 in my previous episode, so here's a refresher. Number 1, character study. Like an actor diving into the psychology and backstory of their character, you should do the same for all of your major characters. Explore each one's motivations, desires, and fears in depth, even creating detailed character biographies if necessary. And this understanding will allow you to ensure that every action and line of dialogue is consistent with their personality and past. 2. Scene breakdown. So actors often break down their scripts into individual scenes to study them more closely, and you can do the same by breaking your novel down into its component scenes or chapters. Evaluate the purpose of each scene and whether it moves the plot forward or develops the character. Cut or rewrite scenes that don't add value. 3. Rehearsal. Just as actors rehearse their lines to understand the flow and rhythm of the dialogue, you should read your novel aloud. This will help you catch any awkward phrasing, overused words, or clunky dialogue that you might have missed when reading silently. And in this episode, we're going to cover blocking, improvisation, feedback, and polishing the performance. Blocking. Just as a director would map out an actor's physical movements on stage or screen, known as blocking, a writer must also pay attention to the character's physical actions within the narrative setting. So here's how to do it. Setting description. First, clearly visualize the settings in which your scenes take place. The setting includes the specific location, the time of day, the weather, and the objects present. Ensure these are clearly described so the reader can effectively imagine the scene. Now, I've had a couple of clients do a couple of things that really took me out of the story. One was a character who walked into a courtroom and her outfit was very clearly described. And then later in the scene, she pulls some documents from a bag. And what pulled me out was the bag had never been mentioned in the description of what she was wearing and what she had. So to me, it came over like what I call a pop-up prop. So something that suddenly comes into play that has never been mentioned before. So definitely think about the objects that are present. I also had a client have a character fall over a piece of furniture in the lounge, and the lounge had previously been described, and this particular piece of furniture wasn't mentioned. So again, it felt like this furniture had suddenly appeared purely for the purpose of what the writer wanted to happen. So yeah, definitely have a think about those scenes and make sure all the right things are mentioned. Okay, so character movements. So next, you map out the physical movements of your characters within each scene. And these can be major actions like running or fighting, or minor ones like making a cup of coffee or placing the room. And ensure these actions are logical, clear, and contribute to the mood and character development or plot progression. And small actions, anything that you can work in, can really help you also break down long chunks of dialogue. And it really does help the reader understand what's going on, because it's very rare that two people will just stand completely motionless having a conversation. So don't let your characters do it either. Spatial relationships. So consider the spatial relationships between characters. How closely are they standing or sitting to each other? How does their physical proximity reflect their relationship or the current tension between them? How do they move around each other? Use of props. So consider how your characters interact with the objects around them. And these props can provide opportunities for action, reveal aspects of character, or even symbolize larger themes. For example, a character nervously fiddling with a wedding ring could indicate marital tension. Sensory details. Don't forget to incorporate the 5 senses in your description of characters, actions, and setting. What can the character see, hear, smell, taste, and touch? Sensory details can make the scene way more vivid and immersive. Consistency. Ensure there's consistency in the blocking. For instance, if a character is holding a drink in one hand, they can't open a door with the same hand unless they put the drink down. You would be surprised how often I see that in client manuscripts. Revise. So based on your blocking analysis, revise the scenes as needed. Add more detail to make the setting clearer, adjust character actions for greater impact or realism, or enhance sensory descriptions to create a more immersive experience. Remember, effective blocking can really add a great deal of depth and realism to your novel. It helps readers to visualize your scenes more clearly, understand your characters better, and therefore become more engaged in your story. Improvisation. So just like actors use improvisation to discover new aspects of their characters, writers can use it to explore uncharted territories in their stories. So improvisation in writing involves letting your creativity flow freely without overthinking or worrying about the rules. And here's how you can incorporate it into your novel editing process. Free writing. So begin with free writing exercise. Choose a character, a scene, or a plot point and start writing without any particular direction or plan in mind. And this can lead to unexpected developments, new plot ideas, or a deeper understanding of your characters. Now, you don't necessarily want to be creating new plot ideas when you are editing, unless you think you might have written yourself into a dead end, or there's something about the manuscript that's feeling a bit flat and you think you might need to be adding a B story. So something that runs parallel with the main story, that informs the main story. But yeah, you don't necessarily want free writing to take you in a completely new direction. It's bad enough staying on beam when you're writing a novel as it is. Alternate scenarios. So try to imagine different outcomes or events for your characters. How would your protagonist react if they were thrown into an entirely different situation? How would the story change if the roles of the two characters were reversed? And again, this can really help get you out of a place where you feel stuck. Character interactions. So experiment with unlikely character interactions. How would a conversation between two characters who never meet in your actual story unfold? What if your protagonist had a confrontation with a minor character? And these exercises can reveal new aspects of your character's personalities. I was once in a play, it was called Save Dickie's Meadow, and it was completely improvised. And the show was put on at the Arts Centre in Colchester in Essex in the UK. And I remember going through all of the rehearsals and creating a character. And what the director did is she paired up characters who weren't necessarily going to meet in the play just to see what the dynamics were like. And then based on those improvised scenes, she put together a rough backbone of the story, and then she used the interactions that she found most interesting as a kind of thread. So, as I say, we all went into the story without really knowing where it was going to go. But by the end of it, we had a rough spine based on all of those interactions that these different characters had had. It's definitely worth considering. Okay, change perspective. Write a scene from a different character's perspective or in a different narrative style. So if your story is in third person, try writing the scene in first person or vice versa, and you might discover new insights about the scene or a character this way. Stretch boundaries. So let yourself break the rules and stretch the boundaries of your story world. So this could mean introducing a fantastical element into a realistic setting, or changing the historical period of your story. And even if these improvisations don't make it into your final novel, they can spark creativity and lead to new ideas. Extract the best. So after you've done some improvisational writing, review what you've created. And most of it might not fit into your novel, but look for any interesting ideas, vivid descriptions, or insightful character moments that could be incorporated into the final draft. Revise. Based on your improvisation, revise your novel as needed. You might change a character's reaction to an event, add a new plot twist, or tweak a scene for greater emotional impact. So, in summary, improvisation can be a fun and really rewarding part of the editing process, offering fresh perspectives and unexpected insights. So by pushing your creative boundaries, you might discover new directions for your story or deeper layers to your characters. Feedback. So actors rarely work in isolation. They often rely on feedback from the director, their fellow actors, and even the audience during previews. As a writer, you too can benefit from constructive criticism. And here's how to incorporate the feedback into your editing process. Find trusted reviewers. Seek out trusted individuals who can provide a helpful critique of your work. This might be a writing group, a fellow writer, a mentor, or a professional editor or book coach like me. Alternatively, consider hiring a professional manuscript consultant like me or joining a writing workshop. Share your work. Once you've identified your reviewers, share your work with them. This might be the whole novel, or you might choose to share one chapter at a time, depending on what you're most comfortable with and what you think will be the most beneficial. Guide the feedback. Give your reviewers some guidance about the type of feedback you're looking for. Do you want general impressions, or are you looking for detailed line edits? Are you unsure about a particular plot point, character, or scene? Receiving critique. When you receive the feedback, approach it with an open mind. Remember, constructive criticism is not personal. It's about the work, not you. Resist the urge to defend your work and listen to what the reviewers have to say. I know it's hard. I really, really do. But better get that critique rather than be eviscerated in a review on Amazon. Evaluate the feedback. So consider all the feedback, but remember, you are the author. You are the god or goddess of your story, and you have the final say. If it's a piece of feedback that resonates with you, or if multiple people point out the same issue, it's probably worth paying attention to. Implement changes. Decide how you want to implement the feedback. And this might involve major rewrites, minor tweaks, or sometimes defending a choice you feel strongly about. Remember, feedback is most useful when it's used to strengthen your own vision, not when it leads to compromising that vision. And I will say that counts for agents as well. If an agent asks you to revise and resubmit, be really clear on what their vision is for your work. And if it doesn't meet your vision, then don't be frightened to say no. Otherwise, you'll be making those revisions and you will be miserable. And there's a real risk that you'll end up with a book that you might get a book deal for, but you absolutely hate. Okay, thank you, reviewers. Don't forget to thank your reviewers for their time and insights. A little gratitude goes a long way, especially if you hope to solicit their feedback again in the future. Getting feedback can sometimes be tough, but it's an invaluable part of the editing process. It provides fresh perspectives on your work, highlights any blind spots you may have, and ultimately helps you create the best possible version of your novel. Polishing the performance. Just as a theatre production has a dress rehearsal, tech rehearsal, and previews to perform the play exactly how it will be presented to the audience, you can do a similar final read-through of your novel to make sure it's ready for publication. And here's how to do that. Prepare. Once you've incorporated the feedback from your reviewers and made your final edits, prepare for your dress rehearsal, and this involves setting aside a dedicated period of time, uninterrupted time. Read without interrupting. Read through your entire novel without making any changes. This is to get a sense of overall flow, pace, and cohesiveness of the narrative. Note down any issues or parts you're not happy with, but don't stop to fix them yet. Check for consistency. Pay close attention to the consistency in the story, and this includes character behaviors, plot development, timeline, and thematic elements. Make sure all the threads of your story tie together neatly. Assess the pacing. So pay attention to the pacing of the story. Are there areas where action drags, or conversely where it feels rushed? The pace should match the narrative's needs, heightening tension where necessary and slowing down during those emotional or introspective moments. Look for typographical errors. Keep an eye out for any typographical or grammatical errors that may have been overlooked. This includes spelling, mistakes, incorrect punctuation, or awkward phrasing. Consider the emotional journey. Reflect on the emotional journey of your novel. Does it make you feel like the way you intended? If it's a thriller, does it keep you on the edge of your seat? If it's a romance, does it tug at your heartstrings? In my latest book, Behind the Seams, I had a chapter that kind of took a bit of a sidestep, and it talked about what was going on in one particular character's head, and it wasn't either of the main characters. And the chapter was about 4,000 words, and I was editing it, and the weather was good. I'm outside in the garden, and my husband came out into the garden, and I was sobbing, and he was like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "Oh my God, this chapter is it's so upsetting and blah blah blah." And a few days later, I was going through it again, and I had the same reaction. So I knew that was a really, really strong chapter. And actually, I ended up taking that chapter out simply because I felt it overshadowed the rest of the novel. And I am turning it into a full-length novel now. But, if you are writing a romance and it doesn't tug at your heartstrings, even after all the time you've been working on it, and I do understand, when you've been reading chapters over and over again, you can kind of get immune to it. But when you're reading it out, when you are experiencing for the first time in a different way, really just check in on your own emotions as you're reading it. So consider that emotional journey that you're hoping the reader will go through too. Revision. Once you've finished your dress rehearsal and read through, go back to the issues you've noted and revise them. So this may involve minor tweaks or substantial edits, depending on what you've uncovered. Final touches. Once you're completely satisfied with your manuscript, make any final formatting adjustments. Write or revise your front and back matter, so your title page, acknowledgements, author bio. Don't forget to thank your book coach and prepare your manuscript for submission or self-publishing. Remember, the dress rehearsal is your final chance to smooth out any remaining rough edges and ensure your novel is the best it can be before it meets its readers. Before I wrap up, I invite you to do all the usual stuff. You know the drill: like, review, share and subscribe. But better than all of that, come and visit me at thebookcoach.co. You can sign up for my free self-editing guide and take a look at the services I provide. But there's tons, and I mean tons, of free useful stuff on my blog too. Final thoughts. As we close the final act of this post, remember that the journey of a writer, like that of an actor, is one of continuous growth and learning. Just as actors continually refine their craft, so too should we, as writers, strive to improve our work with every draft. This unique approach we've explored today, drawing parallels between an actor's preparation for a role and the editing process of a novel, offers a fresh perspective. It encourages exploration, attention to detail, creativity, and critical feedback, all the while keeping the heart and soul of your narrative intact. And it's crucial to remember that the process might be challenging at times, and the transformation of your manuscript might not happen overnight. However, much like an actor tirelessly rehearsing for a play, the final result, the standing ovation, or in your case, a polished and compelling manuscript, will make it all worthwhile. So get out there and breathe life into your characters, weave your plot intricacies, paint vivid worlds, and most importantly, tell your story the best way you can. The stage, or rather the page, is yours. And in the realm of writing, every word counts, every character matters, and every story has the potential to captivate its audience. Happy editing. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I'm conscious there are a lot of podcasts out there, and I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen to mine. But also, well done for investing some time in your own writing life. And yes, this podcast is about writing, but I'm here for you, not just your stories.